How many years have you been doing the fest?
2.
How did you found out about it? By me talking about it at Wedgwood?
Yeah. And, I think you had been talking about it for years before I finally pulled the trigger and decided I would do it. I kind of remember at the beginning thinking, like, is that like some sort of special club or something? Not really knowing it was like an open invitation thing. So I do remember at the beginning going like, what is he talking about, this August postcard, like some special, but I have to say when you did sort of say, well, it's an open thing, I finally kind of came around to it. So
besides the feeling that it was an exclusive club that maybe you weren't able to join, which you were, and it is anyway.
Yeah.
What else stopped you from signing up?
I guess it was just thinking about the commitment, and, my usual August is we typically go on vacation in August, and I wasn't sure how it would fit in with doing vacation, which I have to say, it does turn out to be more challenging than I expected, when it doesn't seem like it should take that long, but I want them to be good, and that takes some focus, and sometimes it's hard to focus when there's a lot of people around, and often that's the case when we're on vacation, we're hanging around with friends, and so it's just finding that space. But that said, I've also found that it's been a nice thing when like this year, I was on vacation most of the month, and it's nice to kind of look at how the postcards related to what we were doing and what I was sort of getting, discovering and so on. Even if not all of them were like place-based postcards, but some of them are. Some of them are definitely, places that I went to that I had never been to before, or things that I saw that I'd never seen or thought about before. And so it's kind of fun to have that it's a little bit woven through with daily life that way, and the adventures of vacation.
I think we've identified your Achilles heel.
Oh.
You want the poems to be good.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's probably it is sort of a thing that you got to get over, right?
It is, isn't you? That's funny. How does POPO augment your own poetry composition practice?
Well, I think I've talked to you about this, that I really appreciate the constraints of trying to make it epistolary, to make it like a letter, and trying to make it to someone, even if it's an imagined someone, because often I don't have any idea who it is that I'm actually writing to. So I have to create a character to write to. But, sometimes I just by looking at a name that I've never read before, it gives me, I like start conjuring, okay, that could be this person, and here's what they want to know about where I am today. And that, I don't often do that when I'm writing. If I sit down to write, I don't often do that little exercise where I say, okay, who am I writing to? So that, in that sense, it's sort of stretched me into a new way of thinking about when I start, what's the project? Who am I speaking to? A lot of times my poems, or I should say my notes that sometimes evolve into poems, are very much just observations for myself. And this made them feel like, no, this is to somebody. This is actually a different thing. And then the other thing that I like about it is the pen. It's pen and paper, which I don't do a lot of writing with pen and paper these days. I've just almost completely gone over to computer writing. So it's bringing me back to that. In fact, in a way, I never was a pen and paper writer. I was a pencil and paper writer, and then I was a computer writer. And the reason for that, I guess, is because pencil, I always felt like you're not expending much, and you can draw a line through it, you can scribble through it, you can erase it, whatever. That was always my mode. And the computer to me was a little bit like that. Whereas pen, you sort of, you messed up the page and there was no going back. So that's another thing about this, is there's no going back. You just have to put it down there, and if you fucked up on the line above, well, maybe you can draw a line through a word, but I would not want to send something with too many things that were crossed out. And I bet in the 2 years that I've done it, I probably only crossed out 2 or 3 words. And usually that was just because I misspelled something.
There's a Thelonious Monk tune called Played Twice. And there's an old notion in jazz that if you play one wrong note, it's a wrong note. But if you play it a second time, it's not wrong anymore.
Yeah.
Do you have a postcard method?
Well, like I said, I kind of go with that constraint of, I look at the picture, so first of all, I pick postcards that the image is evocative to me. For some reason, there's something that catches my eye. I haven't been making postcards, but I work pretty hard at trying to find something that is resonating with me. And then when I sit down to write the postcard to someone, I'll glance at that as a starting place. I'll imagine a person that I'm writing to, and then I will just start in with where that was vibrating, and see where it goes before my space runs out.
Is there a moment of panic when you sense, oh my God, my space is running out? How do I tie this up?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. The ends of these poems, sometimes I feel like I've tried too hard to, tie it up in a bow. And other times I feel like I'm down to the end and I'm really just starting. So yeah, there's definitely, and that's actually sort of the fun of it in a way, is that I feel like it gives me that spontaneous, burst of whatever it is that I was trying to get out there. And before before I know it, time's up,
Do you ever run into the next card, like the first card is a provisional conclusion and you continue that thought onto the next card or the next one after that?
I don't know if I have. This year I had 4 cards. I bought this Rube Goldberg book, and it came to my surprise. I didn't know this when I bought it because it was like a online purchase, but it came with 4 postcards in it that were Rube Goldberg drawings, and so those probably are the ones that are most connected. But I still stuck mostly to the to what the picture was, rather than I started to say this here and now this other thing came out of that. But because Goldberg this was the summer of reading Rube Goldberg for me, and so those were connected just simply because I had been doing a lot of contemplation of Rube Goldberg.
Did you ever call it the Goldberg Summer in one of your poems?
No, I didn't. I have Goldberg Variations, the Rube Goldberg Variations, as one of the titles, working titles of some stuff that I've got going.
So these are ekphrastic poems.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and that's part of what I said about like looking really hard at the postcards that I'm buying, because I want them to be works of art that I have something that evokes something in me, or that I'm trying to understand something. And I learned the etymology of the word empathy. Did I tell you this already?
I think so.
No, this was something that this year at UW Meany Hall, they've been handing out this little card that has the etymology of the word empathy, which is to help you kind of think about the experience that you just had. The original word was German, and it was coined by an art critic to mean understanding the emotion that the artist was trying to convey. And it was a couple decades later that a psychologist translated it to English and used it in a psychological context to mean trying to understand the emotion of the person that you're, interacting with. And I just love that has that kind of art appreciation root to it, because I have thought a lot more since learning that root about the experience of art and about what I'm trying to do when I'm making art, and how empathy is the sort of critical connector between myself and either the person whose art I'm looking at, or hopefully the person who's looking at what I've made.
Or the person who's driving behind you.
Going, why is he going so slow? Oh, maybe he's liking the sunset.
What are other things you love about the Postcard Fest?
Well, this year, and actually last year too, last year I invited several people and only one person took me up. And then this year I invited several people and two people took me up, and that it's been very fun to the first person who did it, she had never written poetry before, and she said that it was actually something that she was doing because she'd been telling her boys who were like 12 and 14 that they should do something that was outside their comfort zone with their summer. And then she decided that she should follow her own advice. And so POPO was her thing to do that. And she said it was, like embarrassing and fun at the same time to do it. So that was kind of cool to have. I feel like that's a really nice thing to have a couple of people who I've introduced the practice to. And one of them is an old high school friend that I've seen like once in the last 40 years, but that I connected with on Facebook and have stayed in touch with, since a few years ago, but didn't know that she wrote. And she wrote a nice thing, and I've also noticed that she has been posting stuff on Facebook that are things I would call, poetic musing kind of things that are beyond the just usual declarative statement or meme or whatever. They're definite, like, they have a kind of lyrical quality to them and stuff. And that's just really an interesting part of it as a means of getting to know someone. Now, one of the people was somebody that I know fairly well because it's somebody here in Seattle, but one of them is far away and I don't see her much. So that was nice.
3 things you'd fix about POPO.
Oh my God. 3 things. Even one thing, man. I'm having a hard time with the first one. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, not everything that comes through is all that pretty and nice, but I can't really think of a way that I would go about trying to fix that. In other words, some people are just not going to write as well as other people, and whatever, and that's just, I understand that to be part of it. So I'm not really feeling like that's a thing that you would fix. What else would I say? I mean, a lot of people don't follow the epistolary model. And I do notice that some people have taken to typing things out and pasting them on, which suggests to me that they're not being quite as spontaneous as maybe it was intended. But, I also don't feel like there needs to be fucking postcard poetry police either. I mean, that's some POPO. Who needs it?
POPO. Are there any communities, online or otherwise, that you think might like to hear about the project?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not super connected with a lot of communities online, but to be honest with you, I don't really know, I don't know that much about who it is that I am connecting with in that regard. I mean, it does seem like there's probably a certain political bent and whatever, but even that I can't say, I have any certainty of. It's just kind of a general feel. I have to say, I'm not too much on the Facebook group thing. I don't really, I watch for announcements or something, but I don't really get too engaged in the talk. And I guess that is something that I'm not sure. It feels like a different thing to me that people, want to post, here's another one I made, or here's another one I got today. To me, it's sort of, there's a little loss of intimacy or something with that, so that's just not for me. But as far as, reaching out or connecting to other people, it just seems to me like it's kind of good word of mouth thing. I did appreciate having some people from other countries, in part because I remember, I had more on my list last year. I had about 4 or 5 on my list last year. This year, I think I only had 1. And maybe that's a thing, if you have one that's ends up being a lot of people from faraway lands, that they would be sort of more distributed across different groups, just so that everybody would get the diversity of that. But I don't know, I haven't really any idea how it comes in, how the lists get constructed, whether that would be a lot of work, or there may be some value in some group found out about it and they all signed up together, and then they were all writing cards to each other, and they like the fact that they're all connected that way. But that's that overseas perspective was kind of nice to have a few people, and I have thought a little bit about that, about the few people that I do know that live far away, of trying to recruit them a little bit more. It's funny because, of course, I don't have that. I don't have like a writing community out there far away from Seattle. So I don't know who to ask, but I do know that I've had a couple of friends who've been willing to do it, who, for whom it was a very foreign idea, and I think they enjoyed it. So,
what advice would you have for someone considering joining the fest?
Well, I would say, at least think about the method, and I call them, my approach, which is epistolary, ekphrastic, pen, spontaneous, get it out there, get it done, just choose carefully the cards that you make, so, if I wrote down sort of like my 5 things, that would be kind of along those lines, and say, it's not that hard, and those little bits of constraints, at least for me, have been really great for squeezing out some ideas that I don't think would have emerged if I wasn't pushing myself to look at an image by an artist that maybe I didn't even know before, and try to understand what they were saying, or try to convey in some way what that I'm getting from the image that they created. That's been a fun thing, and it can be, especially if you're like I've been traveling, it can also be a way of stopping to appreciate the place that you're in, and very much like what writing a postcard is in real life. When you say, wish you were here, there's a part of it. In fact, I have to say that's one of the things that particularly last year, I often, that was the wish you were here mantra at the back of whatever I'm writing, is kind of an interesting part of the postcard.
Do you know how Jimmy Buffett twisted that?
No.
He said, "The weather is here. I wish you were beautiful."
Oh, Jimmy Buffett.
I hate to put you up against Jimmy Buffett, but do you have a postcard poem of yours that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Let me get back over here to the ones that I was working on. So I was actually that made me also go, and I've been putting them onto, like I did last year. If you remember, I typed them up and put them together with the images. So I haven't done all of them yet, but I was doing a couple of them this morning. So let me see here. Which one shall I do here? Okay, so let's see. I wonder if I can show you, if you want to see the image. If there's can I share screen here? Let's see. Share screen. Can you see?
There's a share function, I think, but you know what? Send it to me. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. All right. So I'm over here, and this is the image right there. So here's the words. Beyond the granite threshold ancestors and the children I never had wing through dawn. I will miss them later, but for the moment, they make me draw my shoulders back, breathe their shadows, their fleet images in. Awake now, breath and light and granite beneath my feet are reason enough to give thanks to these birds.
Very empathetic. Did you find the line breaks in some places caused by the shape of the card or the address function to the right?
Oh yeah, they definitely the lines in my handwriting. The lines end up being quite short, and that's okay. I actually have, in some cases, I've started something and I like, no, I really want the line to be longer, and I end up kind of like making a line around the address area so that I have plenty of space to have my lines run on into, all the way over to the stamp or whatever. So the post office, reader thing is probably struggles a little bit with the way that I mess with that sometimes. But, most of them, that's another good constraint. It's like, just make them short and sweet.
Well, thank you for your inspired POPO participation. I'm grateful you're part of the fest.
Yeah, well, Paul, I appreciate being a part of it. It's really fun.
I'll see you Monday at Wedgwood.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.